Jacob.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. So, we are almost at the end. We could probably finish this today.
Yeah, I mean, we're moving fast through this one.
Yeah. Some chapters are much longer than other chapters.
Mm-hmm.
So,
We're at 9, right?
we are on 9, yes. I checked. Ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
You want to go first or should I go first?
I can do it.
It's all you.
Okay, so chapter 9. אבל לגבי הקדוש ברוך הוא, in regard to the Holy One, מדרגת החוכמה, מדרגת החוכמה, שהיא תחילת מחשבה וראשיתה, היא סוף מעשה אצלו. In regard to the Holy One, blessed be He, however, the level of wisdom, which in all created beings is the beginning of thought and its genesis, is to him the final stage of action. Right, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. So it's interesting. So סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה is kind of like, it's as if you can say it's from the angle of God. It's the end of his, well, his thought is סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה.
So, I mean,
yeah,
there is that aspect of Hashem had a thought of what should be, and he has a plan which eventually will come into being.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yeah.
the Alter Rebbe is accentuating here, though, is that the Chokhmah of Atzilut, which is the highest which we can have any sort of relationship with, for God is like nothing, which is like the lowest of the low, because he'll go on to say, I'm pretty sure this is where he says it, that like when you're talking about something infinite and something finite, even the greatest of that which is finite is still like nothing to the infinite.
Right. Yeah. דיינו, שנחשבת כאילו היא בחינת ומדרגת עשייה לגבי הקדוש ברוך הוא, כדכתיב כולם בחוכמה עשית. I.e., in relation to the Holy One, blessed be He, wisdom is considered as if it were the quality and level of action. As it is written, you have made them all with wisdom. והיינו לומר, שכערך החיות שבעשייה גופנית וגשמית לערך החיות החוכמה. That is to say that wisdom relative to him is as the quality of the life force in physical and material action is in relation to the quality of the life force of wisdom. Let me just try to digest this a little bit. That is to say, the wisdom relative to him is as the quality of the life force in physical and material action is in relation to the quality of the life force of wisdom.
So the chiyut, right? That which creates. So that which creates chokhmah ilah, right? The most supernal of wisdom, still has the same essential nature as that which it creates the physical and material asiyah. So that's so he's using the word. He's being medayek on the word kulam b'chokhmah asita, right? Meaning that all of it has the same chokhmah, has the same potentiality, that same chiyut, from chokhmah ilah all the way down to asiyah.
Yeah. שהיא ראשית ומקור החיות באדם וכל הברואים גשמיים, wisdom being the beginning and source of the life force in man and all the physical creatures. שהוא כעין לגבי חיות שבאותיות הדיבור, שהוא כעין לגבי החיות שבאותיות המחשבה. That's what we spoke about last week. For the life force of physicality is as nothing in comparison with the life force in the letters of speech, which in turn is as nothing compared to the life force in the letters of thought. שהוא כעין לגבי חיות ומעלת המידות שמהם נמשכה מחשבה זו, which in turn is as nothing in comparison to the life force and level of the emotive attributes from which this thought is derived. שהוא כעין לגבי חיות ומעלת ומדרגת חוכמה, בינה ודעת, מקור המידות, which in turn is as nothing in comparison to the life force and level and degree of wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, the source of the emotive attributes. כן ממש, ערך מדרגת ומעלת החוכמה שהיא ראשית ומקור החיות שבכל העולמות. Exactly so is the quality and level of wisdom, the beginning and the source of the life force in all worlds. לגבי הקדוש ברוך הוא בכבודו ובעצמו, in relation to the Holy One, blessed be He, in His glory and essence. המרומם והמתנשא ריבו רבבות מדרגות רוממות, יותר מרוממות מדרגת החוכמה על בחינת חיות שבעשייה. Who is elevated and exalted by myriads of degrees of elevation, more than the quality of wisdom is elevated over the quality of life force in action. שהיא רוממות 5 מדרגות לבד, שהן מדרגות בחינות עשייה ודיבור, מחשבה, מידות ושכל. For this is an elevation of only 5 degrees, namely is the levels of action, speech, thought, emotive attributes, and intellect. Right. אבל הקדוש ברוך הוא רם ומתנשא ממדרגת החוכמה, ריבבות מדרגות כאלו עד אין קץ. The Holy One, blessed be He, however, is high and exalted above the level of wisdom by infinite myriads of each of such degrees.
Right? So God is infinitely greater, even though we talk about all of these things like the Partsufim and the 4 worlds and the 10 Sfirot and the differences between the intellectual Sfirot and the emotional Sfirot, right? Yeah. All of this ultimately is nothing because God is infinitely removed from all of this.
Right, yeah. It's like, I think we went through this example of like, what's the highest number that we know of? Let's say it's Google million. I don't know even if that's even a number. But Google million plus 1 is Google million plus 1 closer to infinity than like, so it's like, it's not even compared.
So I would say the analogy I sometimes make is how much would you buy a credit card for if you never had to pay it off? Right?
Yeah.
If you never had to actually pay the credit card, if you could just like how much is that credit card worth? Right? And it's like, well, obviously whatever amount of money you give for it is not comparable.
Yeah. רק מפני שאין בנבראים כוח להשיג רק השתלשלות ממדרגת חוכמה, שהיא ראשיתה למדרגת עשייה השפלה, but in as much as it is within the power of created beings to comprehend only the descent from the level of wisdom, which is there at the beginning, to the level of action, which is the lowliest of levels, לכך אנו אומרים שלגבי הקדוש ברוך הוא נחשבת מדרגת החוכמה כמדרגת עשייה ממש. Therefore, we say that in relation to the Holy One, blessed be He, the level of wisdom is considered exactly as the level of action. So the note here says we use this example simply because there is no greater descent in the realm of human experience than the descent from wisdom to action. Right. So basically, I mean, so we say that because that is appropriate for us to and
That
fits
is,
our understanding of.
yeah, it's an analogy that we can understand.
Mhm.
That think about what it's like for you to actually think about something
Yeah.
until it goes through everything it needs to go to until you actually enact it, right?
Mhm.
That's um, there's a descent in spiritual, in, you might even say, ideal, right? That which is ideal to that which is practical,
Yep.
right? There's a great descent, and this helps us understand, in a way, God.
Mhm. Yeah. Uh, דיינו לומר שהוא רם ונישא ונעלה עילוי רב מאוד מאוד ממדרגת החוכמה. That is to say, God is high and exalted and very greatly elevated above the level of wisdom. Sorry. ולא שייך כלל לייחס אצלו שום עניין המתייחס לחוכמה, אפילו בדרך מעלה ועילוי רב. And it is not at all appropriate to ascribe to him anything that pertains to wisdom, even in a very lofty and sublime form. כגון לומר עליו שאי אפשר לשום נברא עליונים ותחתונים להשיג חוכמתו ומהותו. For example, to say of him that it is beyond the capacity of any higher or lower creature to comprehend his wisdom or his essence.
Even this negative reference to wisdom is inappropriate, right? So, a lot of people in this little corner like to talk about apophatic theology versus cataphatic theology, right? Apophatic being, we can only say what God is not because that's better than what we can say what God is. But the fact is, we can't even say what God is not, right?
That's
Even
what the Rambam tries to do in the Guide to the Perplexed, right?
Right, and this is the best we can do. I mean, we make these types of analogies all the time because that is how we can have any grasp of God whatsoever. But ultimately, all of these do fail. We're just grasping in the dark.
Right. כי עניין ההשגה מתייחס ונופל על דבר חוכמה ושכל, לומר שאפשר להשיגו או אי אפשר להשיגו מפני עומק המושג. For comprehension pertains and applies to a matter of wisdom and intellect, about which one can say that it can or cannot be understood because of the profundity of the concept. אבל הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא למעלה מן השכל והחוכמה, לא שייך כלל לומר בו שאי אפשר להשיגו מפני עומק המושג. However, concerning the Holy One, blessed be He, who transcends intellect and wisdom, it is not at all appropriate to say that one cannot comprehend Him because of the profundity of the concept. כי אינו בבחינת השגה כלל, for He is not within the realm of comprehension at all. והאומר עליו שאי אפשר להשיגו, הוא כאומר על איזו חוכמה רמה ועמוקה שאי אפשר למששה בידיים מפני עומק המושג. He who states, you're good?
Yeah, I love the thing.
Yeah.
The analogy he makes.
He who states that it is impossible to comprehend him is like one who says of some lofty and profound concept that it cannot be touched with their hands because of the depth of the concept. שכל השומע יצחק לו, לפי שחוש המישוש אינו מתייחס ונופל על עשייה גשמית הנתמסת בידיים. Whoever hears this will mock him because the sense of touch refers and applies only to physical objects, which may be grasped by the hands.
Right, so if I say, you really can't understand what a cosine, you can't touch a cosine, right? You can't really touch a cosine. Right?
A cosine?
Yeah, cosine is like sine, cosine, tangent in trigonometry, right? It's like, yeah, But like, what are you saying here? Like, how are these two related? And they're not, right? So when we say you can't even understand God, it's like saying, yeah, you can't really touch the color red, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't touch the color red. What is like what, right?
Right, yeah. וככה ממש נחשבת לגבי הקדוש ברוך הוא מדרגת השכל וההשגה כעשייה גשמית ממש. Exactly so, the level of intellect and comprehension in relation to the Holy One, blessed be He, is considered as actual physical action. ואפילו השגת סקלים שעולמות עליונים, ואפילו מדרגת חוכמה עילאה, מכריע את כולם, כדכתיב כולם בחוכמה עשית. This is even true for the comprehension of the superior and spiritual intelligences in the higher worlds, and even the level of the supernal wisdom, which gives life to them all, is considered so in relation to the Holy One, blessed be He. As it is written, you have made them all with wisdom. So what is also true? Let's connect those two paragraphs together.
I mean, he's this whole chapter so far has been reiterating the same idea over and over again in different ways, right? God is so beyond chokhmah that to him chokhmah is like a physical thing.
Okay. מה שהקדוש ברוך הוא נקרא חכם בכתוב, וגם חכמנו זיכרונם לברכה כינו לו מדרגת ומעלת החוכמה. As for the Holy One, blessed be He, being called wise in Scripture, and our sages of blessed memory have also referred to him with epithets denoting the quality and level of wisdom. היינו, משום שהוא מקור החוכמה, שממנו התברך, נמשך ונאצל מהות מדרגת חוכמה עילאה שבעולם האצילות. This is because he is the source of wisdom. For from him issues and emanates the essence of the level of supernal wisdom which is in the world of Atzilut. וכן רחום וחסיד ועל שם שהוא מקור הרחמים והחסדים. וכן שאר המידות. Likewise he is called merciful and kind because he is the source of mercy and kindness. And likewise regarding the other emotive attributes. שכולם נמשכו ונאצלו ממנו יתברך, for they all proceed and emanate from him. ודרך ועניין ההמשכה והאצילות איך ומה ידוע למשכילים. The manner and the nature of the flow and emanation, how and what, is known to the savants. Just they call it savants.
Savants, משכילים.
They have, sometimes he calls, I guess it refers to be different people with different skills or knowledge of, like, but sometimes he would say, like, this is the first time that I hear savants, but before he would say Yodei Chen.
Yodei Chen, so Yodei Chen usually refers specifically to those who study Kabbalah. I think here he may be including, I mean, here, there's a note from the Rebbe. Note by the Rebbe, this is explained at greater length in many places in Chassidut, such as the Mitzvah Ha'amanat Elokut by the Tzemach Tzedek. Okay. Yeah.
Right. It seems like he's, I mean, this note here says that he's going to at least go through a basic understanding of this emanation. Right?
Yeah.
So the Tzimtzum, Ba'or Ein Sof Baruch Hu, the mystical principle of the Tzimtzum of Ein Sof and of the Ein Sof light, the Tzimtzum Adam Kadmon, and the Tzimtzum of Adam Kadmon, which is the highest state of existence after the Tzimtzum, and the primal thought that contains and is the source of all subsequent emanations and creations. Vesod Adikna,
yeah, literally beard.
The beard?
beard. Yes.
Right, I think we've talked about this before. The esoteric doctrine of the tzimtzum of דקנה. שסוד כל הצמצומים לצמצם האור שהתלבש בבחינות כלים דיוד ספירות. For the underlying purpose of all of the contractions is to condense the light in order to enable it to become enclosed within the vessels of the 10 ספירות of the world of אצילות. והנה, אחר שנתלבש אור אינסוף בבחינות כלים דחוכמה בינה דעת, אז שייך לומר מה שכתב הרמב"ם, הוא היודע והוא המדע והוא הידוע ובידיעת עצמו וכולי. It is only after the Ensof light becomes clothed within the vessels of Chabad that Maimonides' statement about the Holy One, blessed be He, is in place. He is the knower, and He is the knowledge, and He is the known, and by knowing Himself, He knows all creation. I guess it's appropriate here because there's the creation. This is where the part where
it's already in creation. You know what? Once. So I mean. So he's going through Seder Hishtalshalut, right? He starts with Adam Kadmon and Sota Dikna, right?
Yeah.
And through to the Sfirot, the three intellectual Sfirot, is like only after there's been enough Tzimtzumim that we can start talking about the Eser Sfirot of Atzilut, is when we can start saying things like the Rambam says, that God is the knowledge and the known, right? These already are finite concepts and only refer to God in as much as we have no better way of understanding.
Right. Yeah. There's a book at my Chabad shul that's called Seder Hishtalshalut.
Mm-hmm.
I might need to open that up, even though I'm concerned about what
By next week, I expect you to know all of it.
All the Adam Kadmon, all the beards.
Yeah.
Yes. לפי שבחינות כלים דאצילות נעשים נשמה וחיות לבריאה, יצירה, עשייה ולכל אשר בהם. For the vessels of Atzilut become the soul and life force of the worlds of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, and all the creatures therein. אבל בלי צמצום והלבשה הנזכר לעיל, לא שייך כלל לומר הוא היודע והוא המודע וכולי. However, without the aforesaid tzimtzum and investiture of the light in the vessels, it is not at all appropriate to say that He is the knower and He is the knowledge. What the Rambam said, i.e. the whole category of knowledge cannot be ascribed to God, even in so exalted a manner as in the statement that He is the knower. כי אינו בבחינת וגדר דעת ומדע כלל חס ושלום, for He is not within the realm and domain of knowing and knowledge at all, God forbid. אלא למעלה מעלה עילוי רב עד אין קץ.
מעלה עילוי רב עד אין קץ.
Right, I should look at the ניקוד. אלא למעלה עילוי רב עד אין קץ, אפילו מבחינת וגדר חוכמה. But infinitely, He is infinitely elevated above even the level and the bounds of wisdom. עד שבחינת חוכמה נחשבת אצלו יתברך כבחינת עשייה גשמית. To the extent that in relation to Him, the level of wisdom is considered like the level of physical action. Interesting. So it's kind of like it's all the same thing.
Yeah, he's been saying, I mean, that he's been reiterating the same concept over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, but obviously it's helpful for people like me that really don't understand this after 15, maybe more times. It kind of like, it hits from different angles. We are not concerned with esoteric matters. Yes.
Haniglot lanu, right? So The verse in the Torah, I believe it's Deuteronomy 30:30, says, "Hanistarot laHashem Elokeinu v'aniglot lanu v'ulbanenu la'asotam."
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
So when it comes to things that are nistarot, which are beyond our capacity, those belong to God. But those which have been revealed, they belong to us and our children, so that we can understand them.
Understand alasotam.
Yeah, maybe I should look up that.
Interesting. One of the terms that I remember also growing up is hearing all the time people saying "Nistarot darkei Hashem."
Sounds like something to say.
Yeah, but it's just
29:28. Hanistarot הנגלות לנו לבנינו עד עולם לעשות את כל דברי התורה הזאת. So that's Deuteronomy 29:28.
Mm-hmm. So, what is הנגלות לנו? להאמין אמונה שלמה דהיו וגרמוי חד. But it is גרמוי?
Yeah.
גרמוי, right, גרמוי. But it is incumbent upon us to believe with complete faith matters that are revealed to us, that he and his attributes are one. דהיינו, מידותיו של הקדוש ברוך הוא ברצונו וחוכמתו ובינתו ודעתו עם מהותו ועצמותו, i.e. the attributes of the Holy One, blessed be he, and his will and his wisdom and understanding and knowledge are one with his essence and being. המרומם לבדו רוממות אין קץ מבחינת חוכמה ושכל והשגה, who alone is exalted by infinite elevations above the level of wisdom and intellect and comprehension. ולכן גם ייחודו שמתייחד למיתותיו שהציל מאיתו יתברך, גם כן אינו בבחינת השגה, להשיג איך מתייחד בהם. Hence, his union with the attributes which he emanated from himself is also beyond the realm of comprehension. It is impossible to understand how he unites with them. Rather, it may be only apprehended through faith. ולכן, נקראו מידותיו של הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהן הספירות בזוהר הקדוש, רזה מהימנותה.
Mehemnuta.
That didn't work. Anyway, in the Holy Zohar, therefore, the attributes of the Holy One, blessed be he, which are the Sfirot, are called the secrets of faith. Raza is a secret?
Yeah, Raza is sod, and Mehemna means ma'amin, right?
Yeah. שהיא האמונה שלמעלה מן השכל, which is the faith that transcends intellect. For this concept cannot be grasped intellectually, but only through faith. So that is the sod. The sod, the secret is the faith of the unification.
So the Jewish definition of faith is the extension of belief beyond that which we can know, right? How do you know that the sun didn't explode 5 minutes ago? The sun is 8 light minutes away. So it is scientifically impossible for us to know for a fact that the sun didn't explode 5 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
That information is not within our event horizon,
right?
Because 5 minutes ago is not within our 5 minutes ago, 8 light minutes away is not within our. But it is possible for us to say, well, I mean, as an extension of everything I know, I have no reason to believe that the sun exploded 5 minutes ago. And I'll bet you in 3 minutes that'll be, we'll
The sun will shine.
we'll hopefully be here. And if we're not, then you can't collect on the bet anyway, right? So that is what emunah is. Emunah is to extend beyond that which we understand, from that which we understand, to the degree that we understand it. And similarly, when we talk about God and his attributes, right, there is a level of revelation, right? Hanistarot la'Hashem Elokeinu v'haniglot lanu, right? So that which is revealed belongs to us, and what is beyond that is I have zero idea why Shadow decided she needs to do laps, but she apparently does.
Actually, very understandable.
That's Hanistarot la'Hashem Elokeinu, right? That we have a capacity to, in some way, grasp a tiny bit of all this through our faith.
Yeah, I think this is where Peugeot, what he was talking about, and I remember kind of hearing about it first from him, at least. This whole idea of the symbolic world and the patterns that you see in life, I feel like that helps you move towards faith. I'm forgetting the word for this. Like, it's, how do you say in Hebrew? It means pigumim. What's in when you do construction? What do you need to put?
Scaffolding.
Scaffolding. Thank you very much. Okay, so it kind of helps scaffold your understanding of how faith works, because I feel like what you're saying, the way that we can see it in the world, this unification, is by looking at different levels of the world, of us and an employer and employees and company, or the biological world, and all these different levels. And you can see, okay, like I can see all these patterns that keep happening, they keep growing, they keep manifesting at every level. So there's something that you kind of, that builds towards your understanding of the higher levels, maybe the grasp of that, or at least the ability to move towards that. Yeah. So it's interesting. And I don't know if I had another point with that.
Okay. Weiter. Okay. Chapter 10.
Oh wow, we're at chapter 10, right?
Mikol Makom. Nevertheless, Hoil v'dibra Torah Koshon b'nei Adam, since the Torah speaks in human language, l'shachech et ha'ozen ma shehi yechola lishmoa. I didn't know to translate this to modulate, but okay. For the ear, that which it can understand. Lakach nitan reshut l'chachamei ha'emet. Therefore, permission was given to those chachmei ha'emet, the scholars of truth, right? To the Kabbalists. Ledaber b'sfirot b'derech mashal. Right, so we can talk about the sfirot as an analogy. V'karu otan orot, and they referred to them as lights.
Kind of reminds me. I know that, like, I mean, feel like this gets misinterpreted in the Guide to Perplex, right? When the Rambam talks about how we tell stories in a mashal, and like we tell about the there might be like a story about, I think it's about like an unfaithful woman, and somebody goes to her tent,
Right.
and it goes on. I mean, so there's the main gist of the story, but also it says like the tent is there, and she has like blankets there's blankets on the bed, and there's like red lighting and all that kind of stuff. It gives you all these different details that they don't really have anything. I don't know. I forget how he says exactly, but they're there just for the sake of the story. They're not necessarily. They might be. I don't know if he says they might be kind of made up just to kind of like embellish the story. But the important thing is the gist. So it's kind of like, I don't know
Yeah.
if that's what they're trying to connect to.
Yeah. I mean, it's important, and frankly, I think a lot of times when I'm discussing with Christians, I see that the difference is that the Christians sometimes are caught up in a literal understanding um, of an analogy, right? In a way that I mean, that's not where the analogy was supposed to go, and that's something you have to be careful of, right? It says that God took us out of Egypt with a mighty hand.
Yep.
Right? And if you're going to be the type of person to say, well, what does God's hand look like, and does it have 5 fingers? Right? It's like you're not getting what it's saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
כדי שעל ידי המשל הזה יובן לנו קצת עניין הייחוד של הקדוש ברוך הוא ומידותיו. Right? And so that through this analogy we can understand God's unity with his attributes. שהיא בדרך משל. It's an illustration. כאין ייחוד אור השמש שבתוך גוף כדור השמש, עם גוף השמש שנקרא מאור. Right? So this analogy that he keeps on bringing up, right? That when the light of the sun is in the sun, it is considered part of the sun, even though it's there, right? And only when that light emanates from God, then we see it as a separate thing from the sun itself, to call it light and call the sun a luminary. כמו שכתוב את המאור הגדול. Like it says when God created the sun, the great מאור, that which gives light. והזיו והניצוץ המתפשט ומאיר ממנו נקרא אור. And that which, that beam, I guess they translated it, that shines forth from it is called light. כמו לאור יום. He called the light day, right? That it was light, that you could feel the light of the sun, that was called day, right? כשהאור הוא במקורו בגוף השמש, when the light was in the sun itself, הוא מיוחד עמו בתכלית הייחוד. You didn't consider referring to the light, right? Because it was part of the sun. כי אין שם רק עצם אחד, שהוא גוף המאור המאיר, right? We only think of the sun as one thing, right? כי הזיו והאור שם, that ray and light there, עצם אחד ממש עם גוף המאור המאיר, right? It's part of the sun. ואין לו שום מציאות כלל בפני עצמו. You don't think of that ray of light as something that is itself a different thing, independent of it.
Yeah.
וכדברים האלה ממש, and in a similar manner, ויותר מזה, and even more so, הן מידותיו של הקדוש ברוך הוא רצונו וחוכמתו בעולם האצילות, עם מהותו ועצמותו כביכול. right? So we're going to say that this is like an analogy, and this is the analogy, and this is what we need to understand, that those things which emanate from God are at the highest levels completely united and nullified to him. But at the same time, right, he says kaviyachol, as it were, right? המתלבש בתוכם ומתייחד עמהם בתכלית הייחוד, right? That he, because it's enclosed in them in perfect unity, מאחר שנמשכו ונאצלו מאיתו יתברך, על דרך משל כדרך התפשטות האור מהשמש, right? They are things which emanate from him, right? Just like we can say of the analogy that the light comes from the sun. אך לא ממש בדרך זה, but it's not exactly that way. רק בדרך רחוקה ונפלאה מהשגתנו. But it's something that is so far away from our capacity to understand. כי גבהו דרכיו מדרכנו, right? Because his ways are way elevated above our ways. ומכל מקום לשכך האוזן, in order to make it something that we can hear, we can talk about. נשמע ונתבונן ממשל אור השמש, המיוחד ובטל במקורו ואינו עולה בשם כלל בפני עצמו, רק שם המקור לבדו, right? So for us to have something to talk about, we can talk about how in the sun itself, we don't refer to the light of the sun as it exists in the sun. כך כל מידותיו של הקדוש ברוך הוא, רצונו וחוכמתו, אינן עולות ונקראות בשמות אלו כלל. Right? In Atzlut Mahut, when we talk about God himself, right? These emanations of God are not called anything at all. They're as if they don't really exist. Eila legabe hanivraim elyonim v'tachtanim. But when we try to understand them from even the higher, but also the lower world, shahavayatan v'chayutan v'hanhagatan, shakadosh baruch hu mehaveh u'mahayeh otam u'manigam, right? But when we're trying to understand how God brings these into existence and guides them and gives them life, hu b'rtzono v'chokhmato v'binato v'da'ato hamidlavshot v'midotav hakadoshot, right? We understand that hanhaga, how God deals with things, we can say God does them with wisdom, right? Mm-hmm. That gives us some capacity to understand them as they are emanated away from him himself.
Right. How it's visible to us.
Yeah. Kede'ita b'midrash, like is explained in the midrash, asara devarim nivra ha'olam, b'chokhmah, b'tuna, da'at, right? That with 10 things the world was created, and those include chokhmah, binah, da'at, right? Mm-hmm. Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Dichtiv Hashem b'chokhmah yasad haaretz konen shamayim b'da'atot ha'omot nivkau, right? And the midrash there, I think once we actually went through this midrash, it points to various places in the words of the prophets where such things were said, and giving us a mashal, a way to understand godliness.
Yeah.
Ukamamar Eliyahu, like Elijah says in Ketichat Eliyahu, the Achim v'kainen lahon asar sfiran, right? You brought forth 10 garments, tikunim, and called them the 10 sfirot. Lan hagabahon almin stimin de la itkalyan, va'almin de itkalyan, uvahon itkasyit chul, right? these act as a veil, right? And what a veil both allows us to see, one way the Rebbe would analogize this is, so if you have a nuclear reactor, right, and you have a lead cover of it, right, the lead cover keeps you from being harmed by it, but it allows you to be in the same room with this nuclear reaction, right? In a similar way,
something that keeps you away from it, but also allows you to get near it.
exactly.
That's very weird, but yeah.
Right? And similarly, we think of these emanations of God as ways in which God directs the world, but within them, God is actually hidden from us. Right? Al derech mashal. So, for example, ביום ראשון מששת ימי בראשית, נגלית מידת החסד, כלולה מכל מידותיו הקדושות, ורצונו וחוכמתו ובינתו ודעתו המלובשים בה. Right? So there's this idea that each of the 6 days of creation are have a correspondence with the 6 midot, right? So Sunday with Chesed, for example, right? In a particular way, right? Ubara ba et haor ma'amar yehi or, and with that, with Chesed, God created the light on the first day. Shehi bechinat hitpashtut v'hamshachat haor lo'olam milamala, v'hitpashtuto ba'olam misof ha'olam ad sofo, shehi bechinat midat chesed. Right? So there's this concept of kindness or chesed, right? Which allowed God to let his light into this world, right? And that is, you could say, an allegory for understanding how God said that let there be light, and there was light.
Yeah.
Rak mipnei sheklula gam mimidat gevura, right? Yet because it also includes gevura, because when we are talking in Atzilut, right, all the midot are united together. Lachen lo haya ruchani kaor shel mala mamash, right? It was not as pure and spiritual as the actual supernal light. וגם נתלבש בעולם הזה שהוא בבחינת גבול ותכלית, שהוא מהלך תקוף שנה מהארץ לרקיע וממזרח למערב. Right? So there's this idea that the world is a journey of 500 years, whatever that means, right? From the earth to the heavens and from east to west.
Yeah. I'm curious, do you have other examples for like this? This is sticking in my mind too, about the nuclear reactor and the lead covering, something that keeps you away from something, but also allows you to get closer to it.
So the prototypical idea is clothes, right? So when you look at someone's clothes, it's not a part of that person, right? And you to see that person, right? And something about that person, right? At the same time, it's actually hiding something about that person, right? It's revealing one thing and hiding another, and in a very real way. And that's what we mean when we talk about livushim, right? We talk about the sfirot as livushim, right? They are things like we give an indication of they are covering, right? Yet at the same time, their very existence keeps you from seeing that thing as it really is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. וכן ביום שני. And similarly, when we talk about the second day, נגלית מידת גבורה כלולה משאר מידות ורצונו כולו, right? So then on the second day, there was a special revelation of the Sphira of Gevura. Uvara bah harakia, and through it was created the firmament. V'mamar yehi rakia b'toch hamayim v'yeh mavdil bein mayim l'mayim. Right? This concept of separation and division, right? Shehi bechinat tzimtzum uguvurot lahalim mayim ha'elyonim haruchaniyim mimayim hatachtonim. Right? So there's this capacity to create a differentiation between the supernal waters and the lower waters, right? This separation, ועל ידי זה נתגשמו התחתונים בהיבדלם מהעליונים, right? And through this, there was a creation of this separation, right? Umidat chesed kulaba, right? And chesed was included in it, ki olam chesed yibane, right? Because the world is created through chesed, right? The very fact that God is creating the world is itself a chesed, right? Shakol kedei shetera'eh hayavasha ba'adam aleha la'avod Hashem, right? Because all of this was created in order that God may do a kindness to that which has no, which does not deserve it, right? So these things are included in it, but chas v'shalom, to try to understand it in a very literal way. V'chen kulam, and so with the rest of it. V'zehu sha'amar Eliyahu b'tikunim sham, and this is what Eliyahu meant when he Lachza'a eich itnahiga alma betzedek u'mishpat, right? To show laharot, right? How you conduct the world through these characteristics, tzedek and mishpat, righteousness and justice. Tzedek ihu din, mishpat ihu rahameh, right? So tzedek is justice, and mishpat is law, and justice is mercy. Kula lachza'a ech itnaheg alma, right? All of this is a revelation of how the world was created. Ava love the it lach tzedek yediyah the ihudin, right? But that's not to say chas v'shalom that there's an understandable aspect to God in any of these things. V'la mishpat yediyah the ihu rahameh, v'la mikol inun midot klal. None of these attributes at all, right? All of these things are just manners in which we, in our limited capacity, can understand a bit of God. And then there's a very, very long note.
So what don't we understand? We understand how we understand the actions of mercy, but we don't understand the
whatever we understand is an incomplete understanding.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's a revelation in it, right? But that does not mean that this revelation is a complete revelation, because we have no capacity for a complete understanding.
Right, because it's like thinking about, okay, I know, right, because to be merciful, to have a complete understanding of mercy, you need to be able to use it in all possible contexts and with different people and different contexts. So obviously that is a very, very hard thing to do. So, and it's never something that is completely in our grasp. So if we learn one way to be merciful, it doesn't mean that we can take that and apply it all over the place with all of our dealings, is what I'm understanding here.
Right. Yeah, he's being very, very careful that people should not overinterpret allegories.
Mm-hmm.
And to understand that our understanding is in fact very limited.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it makes me think. I'm just trying to think about this. Like, why is he trying to here specifically warn about allegories, and specifically when it comes to like the different attributes? As if like because you can learn something in theory, right? You can learn the again maybe the propositional aspect of mercy and what it means, what it the meaning of it, but that doesn't mean that you can embody it in a perfect way in the world. So you don't really have a total grasp for it. So you can mistake your propositional understanding of something to a embodied understanding of something.
So I've taken a lot to saying all models are wrong, some are useful,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that's basically what he's saying is all models are wrong. Our capacity to understand is by its nature faulty.
Right.
Right? And even though this is probably the most Kabbalistic part of Tanya, where he explains things in the greatest steps, right? He's cautioning us not to become too confident in our thought that we understand God.
That makes sense.
Okay. It's all you.
Tell me.
It's all you.
Okay, let's do it. Is this the last one?
This is chapter 11, and I believe there's one more.
Or maybe there is one more. Okay.
Yeah, there's at least one more.
אוקיי. והנה, גם 10 מאמרות, גם כן נקראו בשם מאמרות לגבי הנבראים בלבד. The 10 utterances are also designated utterances only in relation to the created beings. כי כמו שהמידות שבנשמת האדם, כשבאות להתגלות במעשה, for just as the emotive attributes of the human soul, when they surface in order to be revealed in a corresponding action, הן באות מלובשות באותיות המחשבה. Those midot appear enclosed in the letters of thought, so that the attributes of the Holy One, blessed be He, so do the attributes of the Holy One, blessed be He. כגון, מידת חסד ורחמים שבנשמה, אי אפשר לבוא לידי התגלות בפועל ממש, כי אם על ידי שמחשב בדעתו ומערער מעשה הצדקה וחסד לעשותה בפועל ממש. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. For example, the soul's attributes of kindness and mercy cannot be revealed, find expression in actual deed unless one first thinks about and contemplates doing an actual act of charity and kindness. כי אי אפשר לעשות בלי מחשבה, for one cannot act without thought. ואם מצווה לאחרים לעשות, ואם מצווה לאחרים לעשות, yeah, okay, I could have seen that. ואם מצווה לאחרים לעשות, כמו המלך, if a person such as a king commands others to perform an act of kindness, אזי מתלבשת מידת החסד וגם אותיות המחשבה באותיות הדיבור. Then the attribute of kindness and with it the letters of thought are garbed in the letters of the king's speech. וכן, כשמדבר דברי חסד ורחמים לרעהו, this is also the case when one speaks words of kindness and compassion to his friend. כך על דרך משל, מידותיו של הקדוש ברוך הוא, שבאות לבחינת התגלות פעולתן בתחתונים. So, figuratively speaking, when the emotive attributes of the Holy One, blessed be He, reach the level at which their activity is revealed in the lower worlds, נקרא גילוי זה והמשכת פעולה זו בשם מאמר וצירוף אותיות. This revelation and the flow of this action are called an utterance and a combination of letters. שהרי אי אפשר שתהיה שום פעולה נמשכת ממילותיו הקדושות בלי צירופים הנקראים בשם אותיות. For there can be no action proceeding from his holy emotive attributes without the intermediacy of combinations which are called letters. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of listening to people talk about psychedelic experiences, and they were like, I saw kindness.
Yeah.
I saw the figure, like I know. And then, that could be something that's so dramatic, both in a good way and a bad way. I saw the oneness of whatever, but it has to be garbed, both from the outside for you to perceive it and also for you to keep the flow going, right? To keep the ishtalshalut.
Right. I mean, he's being very direct in saying, like, don't think God actually said words, right? So we said utterances because that is a way in which we can have an analogy to understand, just as when we want to express something, we'll use words and say it, right? In a similar manner, we can understand how God brought forth the world through utterances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so he's saying it very, very direct. I mean, like you're saying, when it's almost like, I mean, he's talking about the reality of things. Not only this is the way that it's convenient for us, this is how things work in terms of they have to be garbed. Maybe maybe you're gonna tell me at the higher level you can.
Yeah, I mean, he's also explaining the analogy, but at the same time, the nekuda here, the point he's trying to make is, don't think that when we say ma'amarot that it's mamash, God chas v'shalom has a mouth and spoke.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. כגון לבריאת האור ממידת החסד, נמשך ממנה המשכת פעולה וכוח לפעול ולברוא את האור, בו את האור. For instance, for the creation of light from the attribute of kindness, there issued from it a flow of action and a power with which to produce and create the light. והמשכת כוח זה וחיות זו נקראת בשם מאמר, ואותיות יהי אור. The flow of this power and the life force is called by the name of utterance, and the combination of letters that constitute the biblical phrase, and let there be light. כי אף שאינן כאותיות מחשבה שלנו, חס ושלום, although they are not actual letters of thought like our letters of thought, God forbid, מכל מקום הם עניין המורה על התהוות האור מאין ליש. Nevertheless, they are a phenomena which indicates the bringing into existence of the light from nothing. שלכן נברא האור מהמשכת כוח זה, ולא נבראו ממנו דברים אחרים, שנבראו גם כן ממידת חסד, כמו מים וכיוצא בהם. Hence, light was created from this flow of power and not other things, which were also created from the attribute of kindness, such as water and the like. מפני שנתלבשו בהם כוחות בחינות צירופים אחרים, המורים על התהוות המים וכיוצא, because in them were clothed powers from other combinations, which indicate the bringing into existence of water and the like. ונמצא כי כל חיות וכוחות, accordingly all life forces and powers, הנמשכות ממידותיו הקדושים לתחתונים לבראם, מאין ליש, ולהחיותם ולקיימם, נקראות בשם אותיות הקדושות, which issue all life forces and powers which issue for God's holy emotive attributes to the lower worlds, to create them ex nihilo and to give them life and sustain them, are called holy letters. שהן בחינת המשכת החיות מרצונו וחוכמתו ומידותיו להתהוות עולמות ולהחיותם. These are the flow of the life force from his will and his wisdom and his emotive attributes to bring worlds into being and give them life.
Right. So just as you have a capacity to think, right, and using letters or words, you think one particular thing, right? So, and, you know, right now I'm thinking of a pink elephant, right? So, okay, pink elephant. At a different time, I can think of something else, right? Yep. So, in a similar way, we can say that there's chesed, and chesed created or through these letters of yehi or, right? There is some shaychut, some capacity for us to understand how the coming into being of the light and in the first day was uttered by God at Kaviyachol.
In a similar way to how these are operating.
There's some analogy to be made there, right?
Yeah. In a very subtle, gentle way.
Yeah. To the extent that we can understand such things, right? Not that chas v'shalom, there was an actual mouth somewhere, like, right, that God was sitting on a chair like I am and said, Yehi or, there should be light.
Yeah. But again, and I'm not trying to say the same thing. To me, just it seems good to think about that the power of this analogy, although obviously we understand it's an analogy, is that it allows you to, it's like this meta insight that allows you to see other things and to hopefully make you wiser, because if you understand it in this way, you can see it all over the place, and again,
it's a useful model.
It's a useful model, yeah.
It's a useful model. These past two chapters, though, he's been very, very making the point over and over again that these are things that are beyond our comprehension ultimately.
Right, and you're doing a great job to keep mentioning it. So I command you.
Thank you.
Almin, wait, are you reading or am I reading? I'm reading, right?
You're reading, yeah.
Yeah. Ve'em shnei minei olamot. So these worlds that are created by the letters are of two kinds. Almin stimin, dela itgalyan. הם המתהווים וחיים וקיימים מכוחות והמשכות נעלמות, כמו אותיות המחשבה בנשמת האדם על דרך משל. Hidden worlds unrevealed, which come into existence and live and are sustained by concealed powers and life forces, like, for example, the letters of thought in the human soul. Okay, so this is one kind. ועלמין דאיתגליין, נבראו וחיים התגלות, שנתגלו כוחות והמשיכות הנעלמות, הנקראות בשם אותיות המחשבה. And worlds revealed, which were created and live from the revelation of hidden powers and life forces called letters of thought. וכשאין בבחינת התגלות להחיות עלמין דאיתגליין, when these letters of thought are in a state of revelation in order to give life to the revealed worlds, נקראות בשם מאמרות, ודבר השם ורוח פיו. They are called utterances and the word of God and the breath of his mouth. כמו אותיות הדיבור באדם על דרך משל, שהן מגלות לשומעים מה שהיה צפון וסתום בליבו. Like, for example, the letters of a man's speech, which reveal to his listeners what was concealed and hidden in his heart. Likewise, I'll read the note. Likewise, the divine letters of speech are a revelation of the force that grants existence and infuses life into those created beings that are of the category of worlds revealed. אבל באמת, בחינת אותיות הדיבור של מעלה, היא למעלה ממדרגת ומהות חוכמה ושכל הנבראים. In truth, however, the supernal letters of speech are far higher than the level and essence of the wisdom and intellect of created beings. שהרי במאמר ואותיות נעשה בצלמנו וכולי, נברא האדם בעל חוכמה ושכל. For man, possessor of wisdom and intellect, was created by the utterance and the letters of the phrase, let us make man in our image. או אפילו בהבל העליון לבד, כי תכתיב ויפח באפיו נשמת חיים. Or man, possessor of wisdom and intellect, was created even by the divine breath alone, as it is written, and he breathed into his nostrils a soul of life. ואם כן, הדיבור והבל העליון הוא מקור החוכמה והשכל שבנשמת האדם הראשון. Hence, the speech, divine speech and breath, it follows that the divine speech and breath are the source of wisdom and intellect in the soul of Adam. הכולל את כל נשמות הצדיקים שהם גדולים ממלאכי השרת, which contains all the souls of the tzaddikim who are superior to the ministering angels. והיינו, לפי שאותיות דיבורו יתברך הן בחינות המשכות כוחות וחיות ממידותיו יתברך. The reason for the transcendence of the supernal letters over the soul is that the letters of God's speech are effluences of power and life force from his emotive attributes. המיוחדות במהותו ועצמותו בתכלית הייחוד שהוא למעלה לאין קץ ממדרגת חוכמה שנבראים, which are united with his essence and being in a perfect unity that is infinitely higher than the level of wisdom in created beings. ולא נקראו בשם אותיות לגבי הנבראים, אלא לגבי מידותיו יתברך בכבודן ובעצמן. They are termed letters not in relation to created beings, but only relative to God's emotive attributes themselves. So he's separating here the concept of the letters of the otiyot kodesh, right? The letters of holiness and wisdom, chokhmah.
So chokhmah is koachma, is the potentiality.
Right.
And bina is boneh, right? Takes it and gestates it and gives it width and height, right?
Yeah.
So he's saying that even this, that we refer to the Asara Mamarot as being otiyot, right? Being in a sense having form, right? That's only again, these things are still in relation. They're not exact.
But again, what's the difference again between that and the potentiality?
So chokhmah. So the analogy is, for example, we talk about a baby being born, right?
Mm-hmm.
It comes from ultimately a single seed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is not expressed, is not differentiated, right?
Right.
That particular single seed is completely one, and as it gestates, right, it grows and it differentiates and it takes on form, right? And you get, for example, a hand or a foot, right? So it becomes something that is expressed, right? And similarly, when we talk about chokhmah legabe bina and dat, right? Chokhmah is koach ma. It is that spark of inspiration
Right.
before it has actually gained form and right. Bina is la'avin davar mitoch davar.
Right. Yeah. So understand the chokhmah. So where is the otiyot here in this analogy?
The otiyot is
The expressions.
so chokhmah is beyond otiyot.
But he's saying that otiyot are closer, or like they're unified with God. No.
No. He's saying otiyot, which are defined and finite, we can refer to the asara ma'amarot as being in letters, right?
Mm-hmm.
That it is, even that, right, is relative to God's attributes, right? Then you can say that it's down in letters, right?
Yeah.
But for us, those letters are still infinite. The asara ma'amarot are still infinite,
Mm-hmm.
right? Legabe us.
Yeah.
Legabe hamidot, it's already like asiyah.
Mm-hmm.
Got it?
Yeah, a little bit more. I think I got it.
Good.
והנה הן כ"ב מיני המשכות חיות וכוחות שונים זה מזה. Now the supernal letters are 22 kinds of effluences of life force and power, differing from one another.
So the Hebrew alphabet has 22 letters.
שבהן נבראו כל העולמות עליונים ותחתונים וכל הברואים שבתוכם, by which all the higher and lower worlds and all the creatures in them were created. שכך עלה ברצונו וחוכמתו התברך לברוא העולם בכ"ב מיני המשכות שונות דווקא, לא פחות ולא יותר. For so it arose in God's will and wisdom that he create the world with exactly 22 different kinds of effluence, neither fewer nor more. והן הן כ"ב אותיות הקבועות בפה ולשון, כדידתן בספר,
as we teach. Yeah.
בספר יצירה. And these are the 22 letters which are fixed in the mouth and tongue, as we have learned in Sefer Yetzirah. Which is the next book we're going to do. ותמונתן בכתב, היא מורה על ציור ההמשכה, כמו שהתברר לכמן. Their written shape, the shape of the letters, as they are written in the Torah, indicates the form of the flow, as will be explained later. שגם אותיות הדיבור והמחשבה שבנפש האדם הן המשכות מהשכל והמידות שבנפש, ממהותן ועצמותן, כמו שנתבאר במקום אחר. For the letters of speech and thought in a human soul are also outflows from the essence and being of the intellect and the emotive attributes, as is explained elsewhere.
And then there's another very long one.
Yeah, I mean, we can read the notes, or I don't know. When you, or do we want to just?
I am not sure that I am capable.
You think it's too much? Yeah, I don't know what necessarily would be there.
Yeah. I'm not sure I would be able to explain these notes very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is the last chapter.
Okay.
רק שהברואים מתחלקים למיניהם בכללות ובפרטות על ידי שינויי הצירופים וחילופים ותמורות כנזכר לעיל. Right? So everything was ultimately created through various combinations and permutations and substitutions and transpositions of these 22 letters, whatever that means, right? כי כל אות היא המשכת חיות וכוח מיוחד פרטי. Each has a particular individual life force and power. וכשנצטרפו אותיות הרבה, right? And when there are many letters, לחיות טבע, they form words. Azai milvad ribui mine kochot v'chayut hanimshachim kefi mispar haotiot shebateva, right? Then, in addition to the numerous kinds of powers and life forces which issue forth according to the numbers of letters in the word, right? So, especially in Hebrew, right? So each word has, every letter you add to it, there's more capacity for that word to be understood in many different ways, right? Od zot ha'ola al kulana, and what is even beyond all of this, right? המשכת כוח עליון בחיות כללות הכוללת ושקולה כנגד כל מיני הכוחות והחיות פרטיות של האותיות ועולה על גביהן, the flow of a higher power and general life force, which contains and is equivalent to all the various individual powers and life forces of the letters and transcends them all, right? So there is that particular capacity of this word, but also the fact that it comes into being from something that is far, far above it.
Right.
Right? And it unites and combines them. להשפיע כוח וחיות לעולם הנברא בתיבה זו, לכללו ולפרטיו. Right? From and now there, so this is a note in the text, right? That's coming up, right? So it's a note which is explaining usually a very Kabbalistic concept in the text. It's in the text, right?
In a book, yeah.
Right, in Tanya. So that these words with which each thing is created have a capacity to bring forth something that is beyond them themselves. לפי שכל אות ואות מכ"ט אותיות התורה, and since each individual letter from the 22 letters in the Torah, היא המשכת חיות וכוח מיוחד פרטי שאינו נמשך באות אחרת, right? So each has a particular life force that doesn't apply to each of the other 21 letters. לכך גם תמונתן בכתב, כל אות היא בתמונה מיוחדת פרטית. That's why each has its own distinctive and specific shape, because it is a manifestation of a particular koach, a particular force. המורה על ציור ההמשכה והתגלות האור והחיות והכוח הנגלה ונמשך באות זו. Right? So each letter has its particular shape, because that particular shape is a manifestation of some spiritual life force that brings it into being in that shape. איך הוא נמשך ונתגלה ממודותיו של הקדוש ברוך הוא רצונו וחוכמתו, right? How it has come into being from the attributes of God himself and his wisdom. כגון דרך משל, so like as an example, בתיבות שבמאמר יהי רקיע וגומר, שנבראו בהם שבע רקיעים וכל צבא השמיים אשר בהם. Right? So we have these words, let there be a firmament. Yehi rakia. Right? And through it, 7 heavens were created, and everything, the celestial hosts within them. Kama'amar Rabbeinu Zechron Bracha, like the sages say, Shechakim, Shabo Rechaim, Omdot, V'tochanot, Man Latzadikim. right? So there's apparently these shchakim, right, in which there are millstones which made manna for tzaddikim, whatever that means. Zvul, right? So there's apparently a firmament called Zvul. Shabo Yerushalayim uBeit HaMikdash uMizbeach, right? Which have a heavenly Jerusalem and Beit HaMikdash and an altar. Machon, a different one. Shabo Otzrot Sheleg Otzrot Barad, right? And there in that firmament there are the stores of snow and hail, whatever that means, right? Sheklalut harakiin nivra'u v'chayim v'kaymin b'chlalut tevot elu shebamamar yehi rakia, right? So just through this utterance of God, yehi rakia, many things came into being, right? Which are beyond anything I understand. Ufrate habruyim shebashava rakiyim, and the specific, particular, individual created things. Nivra kol prat mehen b'chai kayam me'eze tzeruf otiot metevot elu o chilufehen o utmorotehen, right? So each thing like that exists and comes into being through these things, all of them come through various permutations, combinations, substitutions of these letters. Shehen kefi bechinat chayut hanivra haprati hahu, right? Which is according to what that individual thing needs to be. Kikol shinui tzeruf hu harkavat v'arigat hakohot v'chayut b'shinui, right? Because any combination of letters similarly is a combination of the powers and life forces of those letters.
Right.
Shekol ot hakodemet b'tzeruf hi hagoveret v'hi ha'ikar b'briya zu, right? And the precedence of where that letter is in that word has a dominance to it, right? So, for example, they're giving the word Aven, right, which is Aleph Bet Nun, right? And whatever that means, it comes from Aleph, then Bet, then Nun, right? And being in that particular form gives it a spiritual reality, right? So this is basically the absolute opposite of nominalism, right? Nominalism says we give names to things, and those names are not in any way intrinsic to that thing. This is the opposite. It says that there is a name to a thing, and that name is in essence, I mean, I make a lot of computer programming analogies here because it helps us understand, right? Somebody wrote that code, and that code makes an image on your screen, right? And based on how that code is written, there is some image on your screen.
Right. So it gives it's the name actually gives it its life force in a certain way, its form.
Yeah. Its being. I mean, the movie The Matrix was very much based on a lot of these ideas, right? And there's this idea that, for example, Neo, right? And the word Neo comes from Platonic, right? So Neo was able to see the actual code in which that world was programmed.
So it could see the image is the higher level because
because he could see the code behind the image, right?
Is this like the thing that we said of like the garment, like the thing that is like the image? Well, the name, the words are a higher level than like the actual stone is a thing that hides hides something for us, but allows us to
So
get
you
closer to it,
have,
or it's maybe it's
for
not.
example, you have uh, here. You've seen this image from the movie.
I have. I like this movie.
Okay, so like the everything that exists, right, has some sort of code and words that
Mm-hmm.
are flowing through it, right? That code is the Hebrew Mamarot through which God created the world.
Right. And in some way, it's like a more. This is not. I mean, it's like a more pure represent or more direct representation of the thing in itself.
It's it's more fundamental to its
It's
being.
fundamental. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, he spent the last two chapters being very, very exact. Don't take this too far,
Yeah.
right? Don't take the mashal too far. We just spent three chapters actually. Like he's like,
Right. So
don't don't
okay.
take.
So let's think about. I mean, this thing seems it seems important to me right now. Like if we
Yeah,
take it too far, like because in the Matrix, the guy can Neo, right? He can see the code, and we're saying it's a more fundamental aspect of the thing, and what happens in the story as well in the Matrix is that he is able to interact with the code in a more like direct way. He can change the code, so he can do what because he can see it. He can do whatever he wants to it.
and that I mean I was, and that is exactly what he's actually I think warning us
Right.
against
Okay. Yeah. That's right.
is there's especially people who think that by studying Kabbalah and Gematria and stuff like that, that um, they can, in a sense, do witchcraft, right?
Mhm.
They can control God, and that is a complete misunderstanding because all you can do is better understand God.
Right. And on the other hand, okay, so on the other hand, this is kind of like this seems to me like the deconstruction kind of thing where you right, you understand how something works, or you understand that yeah, you deconstruct it so you're like, oh, I see how this works. This is like correlated to this, or these like are categories that we created or that we interact with them. So you think of like ordering it in a different way would be something that is now that you know it, that you know that there are categories, you think I can reorder them
Yeah.
in any way that I want.
Right. So I remember I was talking to Guy, who, and so he's interested in mysticism and stuff like that. And we were talking about the Baal Shem Tov, and he called the Baal Shem Tov Baal Hashem, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, you can't do that, right? There's a difference between Baal Shem and Baal Hashem,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between someone who knows these holy names and someone who is in control, chas v'shalom, of these names,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think ultimately that is that is a large part of why he's like warning us is, hey, yes, these are the spiritual sources, but don't get too ahead of yourself.
Yep. Makes sense.
Okay. שכל אות בבריאה זו. והשאר תפלות אליה ונכללות באורה. Right? The other letters after the first one, right, are subordinate and included in it. ועל ידי זה נבראת בריאה חדשה. And through this, new things are brought into being. וכן בחילופי אותיות או תמורותיהן, right? And the similar, there are various substitutions and transpositions. נבראות, בריאות חדשות, פחותי המעלה, בערך הנבראים, מהאותיות עצמן, right? So, various permutations and substitutions and transpositions of words in their Hebrew create lesser things, right? כי הן דרך משל, דוגמת אור המאיר בלילה בארץ מן הירח, ואור הירח הוא מהשמש, right? So you have this moonlight, which is a reflection of sunlight, right? So it is weaker because it is a reflection of the light as opposed to the actual sunlight.
What are these new creatures? Is he talking about the lower level creatures?
He's talking about the actual, for example, so you have this concept Evan, right, stone,
Mhm.
and then you have the particular stone that you could pick up, right? And the more something is particular, the more it is removed from its ideal, right? This is the hypostasis idea, right? So you have an idea, you have an ideal, and then you have a hypostasis of that ideal.
Is this kind of like the example I think we spoke about before? I forget who mentioned of like the strawberry, and there used to be a strawberry, and now there's a strawberry drink, and then the strawberry flavored soda, and then the strawberry lollipop that's based on the strawberry soda.
Right. Yeah. Local distances. He's the one who explained that about. Leo. I think it's Leotard.
So then you have like a total confusion of.
Well, you have a total confusion if you allow yourself to be confused,
right,
and not understand that things are reflections of, right? Yeah. ונמצא אור שעל הארץ הוא אור האור של השמש, right? So you see that it is that the light that is being in the night, right? It is a light that is reflected from the light of the sun. וככה ממש דרך משל. In this way, as an allegory, האותיות שבמאמרות הן כללות המשכת החיות והאור והכוח ממידותיו של הקדוש ברוך הוא, right? So you have these letters which are a reflection of the divine attributes. לברוא העולמות מאין ליש ולחיותן לקיימן כל זמן משך רצונו יתברך, right? Which allows these things to come into being from God's will, as long as He wishes to sustain. ומכללות המשכה והרה גדולה הזו, right? And from this flow, right? העיר השם והמשיך ממנו תולדותיה כיוצא בה וענפיה, right? Through this, everything that derives from it came into being, שהן תולדות והמשכות האור מהאותיות, right? They are a reflection of the light that comes from these letters. והן חילופי אותיות ותמוריהן וברא בהן ברואים הפרטיים שבכל העולם. And through them, everything that exists ultimately exists. וכן העיר השם עוד. likewise, God projected the light from the letters in another man. והמשיך והוריד דהרה מהאורות האותיות, right? Causing a light from a light from a light, right? To come. וכן המשיך עוד והוריד עד למטה מטה בבחינת השתלשלות, through many gradations of the chain of descent to the lowest world. עד שנברא הדומם ממש כאבנים ועפר. Until you're talking about something that is so removed from God that it has no capacity to move, it is inanimate, right? Like stones and earth. Ushmotehen Evan v'Afar. And yet we can call them by this name, Evan or Afar, right? Hem chilufim, the chilufim, chulu, tmurot, the tmurot, chulu, kanis karlail, right? These are transpositions of transpositions and come from things coming. I mean, ultimately, what he's saying is everything comes from God, right? Yet it comes after descent, after descent, after descent, to the point where we can have physical reality as it exists.
Right.
Nishlam chelek sheni be'ezrat Hashem yitbarach v'yit'aleh. Finish the second part.
Nice.
Very nice.
Can we say Chazak v'Baruch?
Yeah. What is it? Chazak v'nitchazek. Yeah. So you got all that. You have it all clear. No questions.
I just need to write down all the letters and look at them really hard for a very long time.
Then yeah, with all the gematrias and stuff, you'll know everything. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting things to consider and to connect and to continue and to reflect on for a very long time. But I'm excited for the next section as well. I got Tshuva. It's kind of
Tshuva. Yeah, it'll break you.
It'll break me.
Yeah. It's pretty harsh stuff.
You're saying, like, in terms of, I mean, these are letters that he's writing back to his the students, to the disciples, right?
These were letters that were being circulated. That's why it's called an Igeret, but it is on repentance, teshuvah. And it's meant to stir you up to repentance of your sins. Yeah. It's pretty harsh stuff.
Yeah. What's so what do we have in the Tanya? We did Likutei Ma'amarim.
Likutei Amarim is the essence of Tanya.
Right. Sha'ar Yichud Ve'emunah.
Sha'ar Yichud Ve'emunah is what we just finished. Then there's Igeret Teshuvah, which is a letter on repentance. Then there's Igeret Kodesh, which is a collection of many letters on different subjects. And then there's Kuntras Aharon, which is I believe it's called Kuntras Aharon because it's the last thing that he taught, that he's wrote. But yeah, I mean, some people say Kuntras Aharon is more Kabbalistic than Sha'ar Yichud Ve'emunah. Yeah, Kuntras Aharon is another Kabbalistic one.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yep, and once we finish it all, you'll be a Chabad Chassid, and you'll know as much Chabad Chassidut as anybody.
officially finish the Tanya cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. After that, we'll go on to Likutei Torah and Torah Or.
Yeah, I have the Likutei Torah. I bought the book. I showed you the book of the Sachs.
Oh, okay. He has a translation, and yeah, because
Yeah.
Likutei Torah and Torah Or.
It's kind of very concise, but very good. I really like it.
Good. Very nice.
It's nice. Yeah. And I started doing a little bit of Sha'ar Bitachon. Also, the Kehot has like a really nice version of it.
That's from Chovot HaLevavot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get through Chovot HaLevavot. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's about it.
So, end the stream.
I think so.
Okay, we'll end the stream.
Thank you, everybody.